UFC Fight Night, Arman Tsarukyan, Mateusz Gamrot. Welcome to another fight card prediction by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zahn, I go by Harris, and as usual, fight by fight breakdown, fight by fight analysis from that betting perspective specifically. We want to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay action towards the end of the video as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. And most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. Taking place at the UFC Apex, we have 12 fights for this UFC Fight Night card, and even 6 on the prelim, and even 6 on the main card. So in our usual fashion, we're going to get right to work. And we're looking at the prelims. Fight number 1, Vanessa Demopoulos versus Jinh Frey. If I'm looking at Jinh Frey, she's on a 2-fight win streak. She beat Ashley Yoder. That was July of last year. So it's been some time since she last performed. She's a southpaw, decent skill set on paper. She's a decent striker, has a decent jab, has decent calf kicks. She can definitely play that clinch game against the cage as well. She has shown some takedown ability with some top control, although I wouldn't quite rely on her for that. We see her takedown numbers there at less than 1 per fight. Also, good takedown defense is something that I've seen from her. She has 90% takedown defense throughout 4 fights. Not the biggest sample size, but still shows her ability. And just in general, she has decent control. She can fight from the center of the octagon pretty effectively. Just a decent overall opponent, Jinh Frey. And she's taking on Vanessa Demopoulos, who beat Silvana Gomez-Juarez. That was back in January. She's introduced as a jiu-jitsu and a Muay Thai style fighter, aggressive, high-paced. She likes to come forward. She likes to engage. She does have a decent low kick in her own right. She's been in 5-round settings before, so not too worried about her cardio at all. But she does leave herself open in terms of her stand-up. She doesn't have the best striking defense. She's more on the brawling side of things than she is on the technical side of things with her striking. Her strength, of course, is in her jiu-jitsu. She is a high-level grappler, but I wouldn't say that I've seen any clinch from her or any takedowns from her. Ultimately, I don't really see her setting up her own advantageous positions in terms of her submissions. It's more so from catching her opponents making mistakes. I think Jinh Frey is the better striker here. At times, she does fight with a bit of a sparring pace, which could make it tough to win rounds. So that is something to be concerned about. But she does have the ability to turn it up a notch and sort of match the intensity that I would imagine Vanessa Demopoulos is going to bring to the table. I think Vanessa Demopoulos will have a hard time taking the fight to the ground. Again, I don't think she's the best takedown artist for 1. And for 2, Jinh Frey, again, has pretty good takedown defense. If she does take it to the ground, I think Frey is capable of keeping herself protected. Unlike Vanessa Demopoulos' last fight, when I think about that Silvana Gomez-Juarez fight. It's a good matchup on paper for Frey. I think she has the advantages here. She's going to be my pick, but to start things off, minus 260, definitely would not recommend betting on it. But Jinh Frey is going to be my pick.
Yeah, this is a pretty straightforward fight. Vanessa Demopoulos, she has good jiu-jitsu. She has good submissions, but it's the wrestling. Like, she's not good at getting the fight there. And then her stand-up, like, it's not there. She doesn't have any stand-up at all. Jinh Frey is going to have a big advantage on the feet. And when it comes to the wrestling, Jinh Frey might be the better wrestler. She should be able to keep this on the feet. I've seen some things with Vanessa in her previous fights before the UFC where she likes to go on her back, like she likes to pull guard. I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that's going to work here. I don't know how this is going to get to the mat. If she somehow gets Jinh Frey down, or Jinh Frey wants to play grappling with her, Demopoulos is really good from her back, so she can definitely lock up some type of submission. But Jinh Frey has that physicality. She's been looking good her last 2 fights. She got those wins. Even her fight versus Kay Hansen, she was winning that fight, and then she lost the fight. I believe it was the 2nd round, right? So, but she won the 1st round. So even in that loss, she looked pretty good. Demopoulos, I'm not impressed with. So I'm going to go Jinh Frey, the more well-rounded girl here. I know she's a bit up there in age. She's 37, but she has advantages in so much areas. So I'm going to go Jinh Frey to get it done.
Fight number 2, Brian Kelleher versus Mario Bautista. For Brian Kelleher, he lost to Umar Nurmagomedov. That was back in March. Tough fighter, decent stand up, definitely willing to engage. Has a pretty good left hook, pretty decent calf kick as well. Wouldn't say he's the highest quality striker by any means, but he can hold his own at times. He can make it dirty. Got to respect his power and in his finishing ability in general. You see his record there: 24 professional wins. Of those 24 wins, he has 18 finishes, 8 via KO, TKO, 10 of them via submission. So he is somebody who usually finishes the fight inside the distance if he is going to win. In terms of his submissions, he likes that guillotine specifically. He has a number of guillotine finishes on his record. He'll go for it early in fights. He'll catch some guys with it. So that is something that Bautista will have to be aware of. In general, I don't think he's a strong wrestler per se, but he's not going to hesitate to shoot. He's not going to hesitate to look for clinch situations. We see his takedown numbers there. He's landing them, almost two per fight, just over 40% accuracy. Again, not the strongest wrestler, but he does find a way to get it to the mat. Mario Bautista, on the other hand, unanimous decision win over Jay Perrin. That was back in February. Good boxing, switch stance fighter, good movement, good feints and fakes, good distance control. He fights from the center of the octagon more times than not. We see he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, 3 inches in height as well. Pretty intelligent striker, pretty diverse striker, picks his shots well, good combinations when needed. You can trust him on the feet. 70% takedown defense, small sample size, only 4 UFC fights, but it does show some IQ in terms of stopping the takedown. And when I think about his last fight versus Jay Perrin, his cardio looked good. He was pushing a pretty good pace. The striking looked a little bit cleaner, it looked a little bit more diverse. His takedown defense looked good in that fight. And he was able to use some effective clinch work against the cage offensively to score some points. So, especially after his last fight, I like Mario Bautista here. I think he is the better striker. I think he can push a pace just as well as Kelleher can. And again, his takedown defense, I think, will be good enough versus a guy who I don't think has the strongest wrestling. I also see, again, the physical advantages, the 3 inches in height, 3 inches in reach, as being key advantages for Mario Bautista to expose Brian Kelleher a bit further on the feet. I do think that Brian Kelleher has a puncher's chance. I always think he does have a puncher's chance, but not really much beyond that. So I am liking Mario Bautista here. That puncher's chance might just happen. So I'm not saying it's a guarantee for Bautista in any way, but I do like Mario Bautista in this position.
Wow, yeah, this is a really hard fight. When I was breaking it down, I was really looking at how Kelleher approaches his opponents because he's a vet, right? So these guys have that high IQ, most of them. But Kelleher is one of them. He's a smart fighter. Against fighters that have a wrestling advantage over him, he doesn't really go for takedowns. Obviously, he doesn't get the takedowns for whatever reason. He can't get the takedown because they have better wrestling. But against fighters like Kevin Kroom, he got 6 takedowns against Kevin Kroom. He got 3 takedowns against Domingo Pilarte. 2 guys that he had a wrestling advantage. He's going to have a wrestling advantage here as well. And in these type of fights, he's such a smart fighter that this guy's going to go for the takedowns. And it could make the fight look close. I'm going Mario Bautista. I think that his striking is so much better. It looks like he's getting stronger physically. In his last fight, he looked like he put on some muscle in that fight. So he's definitely looking better, and he should have a striking advantage with that reach. But my concern is if this goes to the judges and if there's a 1 or 2 takedowns in the mix, I could see them just making a decision how they want, right? So like the judging is really shifty here, and Kelleher is one of those guys that are smart that can make it look closer than it really is. Because Bautista's still not there yet, but again, he's a really good prospect, 28 years old. I'm going to take him in this spot with his reach, just piecing him up on the feet. Again, as you indicated, he does have grappling. He has actually really good jiu-jitsu. But I think on the feet, it's going to be such a big advantage with that striking and that reach, so that length. So I'm going to go Mario Bautista here to get it done.
Fight number 3, JP Buys, Cody Durden. JP Buys, he's on actually a 2-fight losing streak, 0-2 in the UFC now after coming in as a decent prospect, someone that had some eyes on him. He lost to Montel Jackson in his last fight. That was in September. I believe it was a short notice fight, if I'm not mistaken. He moved up a weight class in that fight. He fights pretty fast paced. I like his stand up. It's solid. It's quick. Again, it's high paced. Solid striking technique as well. But primarily, he's going to want to take the fight to the ground. He has good wrestling. He has good takedowns. He's pretty smothering on top. Keeps you on the ground. He can wrap that leg up in half guard and really just again look to sort of spend time on top and control and include some ground and pound in there and include some really tight submission attempts. We've seen a very small sample size. His submission average is way up there. So it lets you know that he's gonna go for it. Cody Durden, somewhat of a similar game. He lost to Muhammad Makayev back in March. Decent on the feet, maybe serviceable on the feet would probably be a better word for it. Calf kicks looking pretty decent lately. He does pick his shots well. He has a decent pace to him, decent pressure from him early in fights, and he's going to use that pressure to again look for the wrestling. As I said, very similar fighters in some ways. He has solid wrestling. Again, he likes that single leg as well. Good shots, good chain wrestling to go along with it. I don't think his striking defense is the best, and I think his cardio might be a little bit questionable with how high of a pace he puts on as well. So those are some red flags on the side of Cody Durden. JP Bays, to me, he could still be a decent prospect despite starting 0-2 in the UFC. I feel like he may be fighting for his job here. The last thing you'd want to do, I think he's like 25, 26 years old. Last thing you'd want to do is come into the UFC and lose your first three, 26 years old. So I'm sure he's going to feel like he's fighting for his job in this one. He might be the better wrestler here. Wrestling, of course, is key for both of these fighters. I think about JP Bays moving up to 135 again in his last fight. Landed a pretty solid takedown in round one of his last fight, and that was against a much bigger Montel Jackson. So, to be able to land that shows me that he's going to be able to land it on Cody Durden. Durden might be the more relentless wrestler. He might have the better wrestling exchanges of the two, so keep that in mind. Definitely not saying JP Bays is guaranteed to have better wrestling. In a lot of ways, it's hard to tell who's going to have the wrestling advantage, but one thing that I am sure about is that JP Bays is the better striker, and thus the better overall fighter here. Again, add in that desperation factor. Can't go 0-3 in the UFC. That leads me to picking JP Bays to win this fight. He was an underdog at one point. I see that he is a slight favorite now. So it looks like a lot of people are agreeing with me. But nonetheless, I'm going JP Bays.
Yeah, this is a close fight because they're pretty much similar fighters. They both have that wrestling, and they both have, or the striking's not really there, but it's serviceable. So we're looking at two guys that can wrestle. They can strike, but they're not the best strikers. JP Bays, I see a lot of. I think he might have heart issues, or he seems a bit soft to me. Cody Durden seems like he's not the smartest fighter in there. So it's a tough fight to feel confident on either side. But I think Cody Durden has a bit more dog in him than JP Bays. So I actually think Cody Durden's going to win this fight here. Just having a bit more fight in him. He's gone 3 rounds. He won the 3rd round in that fight versus Aori Kalang. He won the last round on all the judges' scorecards, so his cardio held up for that fight. So yeah, it's gonna be a tough fight. I think he can hold his own in the stand-up. I don't think JP Bays. I think that JP Bays could be looking good in the stand-up, but Cody, he's aggressive. He's unpredictable, and I think once he lands a good punch on JP, I think it could change the tide of the fight like right away. So I'm gonna go Cody Durden, just being the tougher guy to get this one done.
All right, so then let's move on then in that case to the 4th fight of our prelims. We have Raulian Paiva versus Sergey Morozov. For Paiva, he lost to Sean O'Malley. That was back in December. He's a good Thai kickboxing type of style. Good kicks, diverse kicks, hands are decent, combinations are pretty solid. Good movement, pretty light on his feet. Expect him to keep the fight standing. Just 3 takedowns in 7 UFC fights. That also includes the White Contender Series. He does have 75% takedown defense, though he has been taken down a total of 11 times in those same 7 fights. So just be careful about that. The percentage might not be as good as it seems in terms of how many times he's actually been taken down. Um, that's important because Sergey Morozov has that ability to take the fight to the ground. He lost to Douglas De Silva de Andrade back in February. Good stand up wrestling combination, good in and out movement on the feet, a lot of fakes and feints, good jab, good timing, good counter puncher. Again, has a tight body lock, good strong clinch. He can land that takedown. We see that, he lands over 3 per fight. He's good on the ground. We saw him dominate on the ground versus Khalid Taha. Also, despite being taken down over 5 times versus Umar Nurmagomedov, we saw some really good scrambling exchanges in that fight, and he also landed a takedown in his last fight. So again, it's something that he can refer to. The question that you have to ask yourself is, how do they compare on the feet? My answer to that is, in some ways, they're just as good as each other. I think Paiva is a bit more diverse with the attack, but I do think Morozov can be a bit more dangerous with the power, and sort of with the intention behind his striking. Morozov, to me, also has a clear advantage on the ground, in my opinion. I think he can and I think he will land the takedown. And I think that's ultimately going to be the difference. A lot of 50-50 on the feet, both of them having their moments, but Morozov being able to refer to the ground game, whereas Paiva not being able to do that. So my pick is going to be Sergey Morozov here. Not a guarantee by any means, but I'm actually liking the value here. I see minus 140 as it currently stands, and it's a decent one. Mute.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This fight, man. I was thinking actually. I wasn't on mute. I was just thinking, man. This is a really hard fight. I was going back and forth in this. It's a tough fight. Where do I begin here? Raulian Paiva has. I think he has a striking advantage. I think he's going to be the guy that could take the better shots. I think he's the guy that, obviously, the better chin. I think he's more durable. Morozov, like when I look at him, I think he's a bit chinny. I think that he's a little softer in terms of if this becomes a war. If this becomes a messy fight, it's going to favor Paiva. So I was going back and forth here. I see that they both have a lot of fights on their records. What made me choose Morozov, I'll tell you, is the grappling. And when I look at Paiva, I know he has a 75% takedown defense, but certain fighters have been able to take him down. And I'm talking about Kyler Phillips got him down 4 times. Rogerio Bontorin got him down twice, and Kai France got him down twice. So if Kai France can get him down, Morozov should be able to avoid the long strikes from Paiva. But again, it could just be one shot and then the fight just changes, right? So I'm not confident on this one. This is actually, to me, one of the 2 hardest fights on the card to pick. For the channel, I'll go Morozov to get it done, just being a bit more well-rounded because he can hold his own in the stand-up. And then he does have that grappling advantage, and Paiva can get taken down. So I'm going to go Sergey Morozov to get this one done.
All right, so let's move on to fight number 5. We have TJ Brown taking on Shayilan Nuerdanbieke. And for this fight, TJ Brown, he beat Charles Hossa back in January. He's a switch stance fighter, powerful, fast, good in and out movement, good active jab, likes to come forward as well. Good combinations, primarily a boxer on the feet, good lateral movement. Also has pretty good takedowns. He used to play football, almost 5 takedowns a fight, over 60% accuracy. I noticed on the feet specifically, very prone to that calf kick. Also, cardio may be an issue, bigger frame. Though he's still sort of able to implement his game plan. I've seen him be able to land takedowns in round 3, still land that, still have that, top control, still kind of implement some ground and pound and some lay and pray on top of that as well. So although he does slow down, he is someone who can still try to do what he's trying to do. Or Nuerdanbieke, on the other hand, he lost to Sean Soriano back in November. His style on the feet caters a style of a wrestler, so expect him to have a wide base. Expect him to make a lot of level changes, a lot of fakes, a lot of feints. Again, basically looking to set up that takedown. He's going to look to clinch against the cage, and then again attempt those takedowns, especially after he sort of goes on a flurry of punches. Decent takedown attempts, some chain wrestling, body locks, trips. He definitely stays committed to it. So you can see, although not the highest percentage at 27%, the takedown numbers are still coming in at 3 per fight. His style, however, does create some cardio concerns. It's high effort. He definitely slows down after that first round, and the takedowns aren't really as abundant or as effective. I think that's ultimately what's going to cost Nuerdanbieke in this fight. And I also think TJ Brown is maybe just a little bit better overall. Again, Nuerdanbieke, he has a lot of wasted movement on the feet. I think TJ Brown is a bit more sound, especially with the inclusion of that jab that comes in pretty regularly. I think both of them can wrestle. I think of both of them also can be taken down. They both have takedown defense percentages in the 30s. So it's really going to be up to who goes for it first and who goes for it more often. Amongst Nuerdanbieke's wrestling style, again, I noticed that he likes to keep the fight standing despite that ability that he has. I think that'll favor TJ Brown. As I just mentioned, both fighters can be taken down. And if Nuerdanbieke is going to be more likely to keep it on the feet, that's going to allow TJ Brown opportunities to sort of resort to the ground game first. I think that's what's going to happen in this fight, and I think that's going to allow him to pull out a victory. I do think it'll be a close one. I think minus 200 is a little bit too steep for any of these fighters. Anything can happen in this fight, but I am slightly leaning in favor of TJ Brown.
Yeah, this the thing is this fight. You can't really trust either guy, and for me, the skills tell me who should win the fight, but I can't trust TJ Brown because this guy, yeah, he fights. You never know what you're gonna get with this guy. He has the skills, um, but again, you don't know what you're gonna get if he's gonna come out there with a game plan. If he's gonna come out there implement some wrestling, you just don't know, right? So it's a tough fight because Shayilan is a strong guy physically. Like he could literally, if he has the cardio, he might be able to just strength his way through to a victory here. But again, TJ has wrestling as well, so I expect both of these guys to get their wrestling going. And eventually, I don't think these guys have the best cardio, so I think that as the fight goes on, it's eventually going to be a stand-up fight. And at that point, TJ I think has a big advantage standing. I think he's the technically the better guy. So that being said, I'm going to go TJ Brown. I think he just needs to go out there. Again, he can implement his wrestling, or he can just keep it on the feet and just utilize his striking because he has a big advantage there. So yeah, it's a tough fight because I'm not sure what TJ is going to do. But yeah, I'm going to go TJ Brown. I think he gets it done. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, I think. Yeah, so I think he's going to get his third win here. So I'm going to go TJ Brown to get this win.
All right, so let's then move on to the final fight of the prelims. We have Carlos Ulberg versus Tafon and Nchukwi. For Carlos Ulberg, a unanimous decision win over Fabio Cherant in February. Highly talented kickboxer. He's light on the feet, good, quick, accurate, diverse striking. He has good movement. He has good combinations. He has a lot of fakes and feints. He is a multiple-time kickboxing champion. Just to double down again on that kickboxing ability, has power in his hands as well. Cardio might be a concern though. He also might be a little bit chinny with the way that we saw he looked in his debut. Tafon Nchukwi, on the other hand, he lost to Amazat Mirzakhanov. That was back in March. Southpaw on the feet, switch stance type of fighter actually. Kickboxing stance, good movement. He stays pretty sharp, stays pretty technical. Good striking defense. He's a decent counterpuncher, decent combinations. He likes to fight from range. We see actually, 4 inches of a shorter fighter, but both of them have the same reach. Again, just speaking to his ability to fight from range. I am pretty satisfied with his cardio tank, despite such a big guy that he is. Look for decent kind of clinch work, dirty boxing work from him as well. And I've seen him land a number of takedown on guys who can't really defend it. Although the numbers come in at just one takedown per fight, just under 60% accuracy, it is something that I've seen him resort to. So that'll be interesting to see how, he uses that against a kickboxer and Carlos Ulberg. I do think for the most part it will be a kickboxing match though. So I don't think Nchukwi resorts to a ground game often here. I think Ulberg can be a lot more dynamic. I think he can be a lot quicker with the striking. I definitely understand why he is the favorite here, the slight favorite at minus 120. But I do think Tafon and Nchukwi is just a bit too solid here. I think Ulberg will look pretty good at the beginning of the fight, but as the fight goes on, I think a few things will happen. I think Ulberg will start to slow down. I think Tafon and Nchukwi will kind of stay steady, and I think Nchukwi will start to find his timing. I think both fighters are getting the style of fight that they want in their opponent. I think about Nchukwi's last fight against Amazat Murzakanov. He looked pretty decent in that fight until that knockout, or until that fight-changing punch. I'm trying to remember exactly what happened in that fight. So again, weathering the early storm of Carlos Ulberg, I think eventually in rounds 2 and 3, Tafon and Nchukwi will start to pull away. So I'm going to go with the slight underdog here. Tafon and Nchukwi is going to be my pick.
Yeah, this is a tough one, man. This is the other one that I was gonna. This is another hard fight to pick here. Um, Tafon, yeah, he could wrestle. He could wrestle his way to win this fight. He has power. If he gets him on the ground and does some ground and pound, could be lights out. But I think this is gonna be a stand-up fight. I think a lot of this is gonna be in the striking. I think Carlos Ulberg, I think he fixed his issue in that Kennedy fight. I think that was cardio, something, or again, he got hit with a good shot. Um, but I think it was cardio as well. I think he was just slowing down. But I think he fixed that cardio problem. And it being a kickboxing match, I'm gonna go with the guy that's quicker on the feet. Tafon's a bit flat-footed. But again, yesterday I was thinking Tafon's gonna win this fight. I was thinking Tafon's gonna eventually connect and knock him out, right? So my confidence level on this fight is not there at all. So I got to make a pick though. I'm gonna go Carlos Ulberg, but it's gonna be hard to fight clean for 3 rounds. It's gonna be hard to fight clean, not get hit. Um, these are smaller gloves than the kickboxing gloves, right? So it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough, but I think Carlos can get it done. I think he can move around, get some good shots. Tafon's gonna be hard to put away, but you can knock him out as we've seen, right? So I'm gonna go Carlos Ulberg here to pull it off, but I'm not confident here. This guy, both these guys have only 8 fights and 5 fights, so I'm not confident here at all.
Fair enough. Let's move on to the first fight of the main card. We have Chris Curtis versus Rodolfo Vieira. Definitely a clash of styles type of fight. For Chris Curtis, 7-fight win streak, 2 very impressive wins in his first 2 UFC fights. He beat Brendan Allen in December. Southpaw on the feet, primarily a boxer, pretty clean boxer as well. He can put his combinations together, pretty composed on the feet, has pretty solid punch IQ, good counter puncher as well. He has power. You look at his record, there are 28 professional wins. Half of those are via KO TKO. And again, 2-0 in the UFC. He knocked out Phil Hawes. He knocked out Brendan Allen. Pretty impressive. He appears to have solid takedown defense as well, which will be super important in this fight going up against Rodolfo Vieira, who is a true Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist. The black belt, 5-time BJJ world champion. Also has some good wrestling, combat sambo background, combat sambo accolades to his name as well. So pretty complete package in terms of his ground game. He has really good, again, a really good takedown game. He can switch from that wrestling to that jujitsu to keep you on the ground, to have good position, to threaten with submissions. So you really have to be sharp if/when he resorts to a ground game. Stand up isn't so bad. It is serviceable. It does have some technique. It does have some decent movement to it. But again, he has a really big frame for this 105-pound division, and as a result, super questionable cardio. Like I said, striker versus ground artist. Vieira does look comfortable on the feet, but I think it would cost him big time to try to strike with Chris Curtis. I thought he did a little bit too much striking in his last fight. And I think cardio has something to do with that. It's almost like I don't think he can wrestle and grapple for 3 rounds, and I don't think he can trust himself to do that either. So I think he's kind of hesitant to want to do that, and as a result, he's going to stand more than he should. And I ultimately think that's what's going to cost him. I think that he can, that he will land the takedown. So he's really only going to have that attempt, in my opinion, to finish the fight. That first attempt, sumptuously in the first round. If the fight continues into subsequent rounds, I do think the takedowns will be harder to come by, and I do think Chris Curtis will start to pull away on the feet, potentially hurting Rodolfo Vieira as well. So I mean, clash of styles, anything can happen. Vieira can very well, lay and pray for 2 rounds and win an easy one and just have to survive that third. But I'm seeing Chris Curtis being able to stuff the takedowns kind of after round one. And again, like I said, pulling away to victory. Chris Curtis is going to be my pick.
Yeah, I can see it going that way, man. This is an interesting fight. Chris Curtis, let's not forget this guy has fought a who's who. This guy fought Bilal Muhammad a long time ago. He lost that fight. But this guy has a win against Andre Fiallo. Right now he's on a 7-fight winning streak. This guy's a fight all comers type of fighter. I like him here. I think he has the good boxing, the heavy hands. I think he could win this fight. But I'm actually going with the who's the favorite here?
Chris Curtis, slight favorite, minus 135.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Rodolfo Vieira. I'll explain. I don't think. Okay, the thing is, a lot of the Rodolfo issue was that fight he had where he gassed out, but that was against Anthony Hernandez, who himself has like 5 submissions on his record. This is against a fellow guy that knows jiu-jitsu, right? So Chris Curtis doesn't have that knowledge. That Chris doesn't have that knowledge in terms of jiu-jitsu. Yeah, he stuffed his last fights with takedowns, but I don't even think Phil Haas was really pushing takedowns, and Brendan Allen doesn't really have the best takedowns. He doesn't really have it. He has good jiu-jitsu, but his takedowns are not the best. I think, or I know, Rodolfo's going to get him to the mat. I know he's going to get him to the mat, and I think people are forgetting how good this guy's jiu-jitsu is. He probably has the best jiu-jitsu in the UFC right now, based on what he's done in jiu-jitsu tournaments. This guy's really high level, and once you get to the ground with this guy, he submits everybody, right? So he had that issue with Anthony Hernandez and sort of with Dustin Stolfus until later in the fight, but I'd rather see him get a 3rd-round submission because that shows us that he's fixing his cardio. So that tells me that right there. And then all the other fights, if he gets it to the mat, it looks like he's finishing them in the 1st round or the 2nd round. All he needs is that one takedown, especially against a guy like Chris Curtis, who doesn't really, if you watch his fights, his previous fights before the UFC and PFL, he doesn't have the best grappling off his back. So I could definitely see Rodolfo sinking in a choke off his back, getting the locks in. I could see it. I could picture Rodolfo getting him out of there in the 1st round, right? So I'm gonna go Rodolfo to get it done. Am I confident? Not really, but as an underdog, I'm definitely gonna sprinkle something on that here. I think he could pull it off here. I think he has a big, huge advantage, and I think he can get this to the mat because his wrestling is far better than Brendan Allen, far better than not Phil Haas, but I don't think Phil Haas was pushing the wrestling. But this guy is gonna get this to the mat. So can Chris survive? And I don't think so. So I'm gonna go Rodolfo Vieira to get it done.
Second fight of the prelims, Nate Maness, Umar Nurmagomedov. I won't spend too much time here. Nurmagomedov is a minus 900. So really don't want to spend too much here. Nurmagomedov can, fight in both stances, crafty stand-up, Sambo world champion. He's exactly who you expect him to be on the ground as well. Nate Maness, on the other hand, he has that boxing wrestling combination to his game as well. But again, I'll make this really short. I think Maness can keep the fight competitive, but to keep the prediction itself short, I feel like Nurmagomedov does everything better in this fight. I feel like Nurmagomedov is better on the feet, a little bit quicker, maybe a little bit sharper, maybe a little bit more effective. I think he's the stronger wrestler. I think he's a big time favorite for a reason. Probably too big of a favorite for me to be interested in adding him to a parlay, but I do think he gets the job done, and I think he gets the job done fairly comfortably. But again, minus 900, it's still a fight, so I'm probably not betting this.
Yeah, I got a question. Who do you think is the better boxer?
I think Maness is probably the cleaner boxer, but I think Umar is a little bit quicker, can be more effective on the feet.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, that fight, I'll be straight for it. I think Umar is gonna get it done. Let's be real. This guy's gonna be this guy's looking really good, man. And he's gonna be up there one day in the top 5, top whatever. I see him. He could utilize the wrestling, grapple. He's too well rounded here, right? So Maness has that puncher's chance. I think though he has power. We've seen Maness knock somebody out, and so he can definitely pull it out, right? But Nurmagomedov, he's Umar is ready for this, right? So I got Umar here to get it done. You could knock him out with kicks, or likely he's going to take him to the mat where he has a huge advantage in the grappling, sink in the chokes, and fight's over. So Umar is my pick.
Third fight of the main card, we have Thiago Moisés versus Christos Giagos. For this fight, Thiago Moisés, 2-fight losing streak. He lost to Joel Alvarez. That was back in November. Pretty well-rounded fighter. Otherwise, he likes that calf kick. He'll use a Muay Thai kickboxing style on the feet. Good in and out movement. Pretty composed. Pretty polished on the feet overall. He can land that takedown. Just one per fight. Nothing too crazy, but again, he can land it. And on top of that, he is a pretty good grappler. BJJ black belt. So, look for him to resort to that grappling in moments that do end up on the ground. And I wouldn't be surprised to see those moments going up against Christos Giagos. He did lose to Arman Tsarukyan back in September. That was just a complete mismatch. He is a switch stance fighter, introduced as a boxer and wrestler. He will fight from the outside. He'll circle from the cage, circle around the cage, I should say. A lot of fakes, decent use of a long jab. Only going to have a 1-inch reach advantage in this fight, but again, uses that jab to its fullest reach. So that's something I can see being an advantage for him. Looks like he can grapple as well, pair it along with his wrestling. Again, we see the numbers there, 3 takedowns per fight. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can implement the wrestling. But the prediction itself won't be too long. I like Moisés to bounce back here. I think this is a step down in competition for him. I think Moisés is more well versed in the stand up, and although I think Christos Giagos is the better wrestler, I think Moisés can defend them, or again use that grappling IQ that he has in order to get back to his feet. And a third loss in a row. I mean, you always think about that desperation factor. I don't think Moisés is fighting for his job, but I think that 3 losses in a row would be very costly in terms of his lightweight ranking. So I think he's going to do everything that he can to pull out a win, to kind of stay relevant, to stay in the upper tier of the rankings themselves, and to continue, fighting ranked opponents and try to make his way back into a top 10 or back into a contending type of picture. So I like Moisés to get the job done here. Again, I'm looking at the X factors in terms of that desperation factor. I'm looking at him being more well versed on the feet, and I'm looking at him essentially being able to defend the takedowns as the fight goes on. Thiago Moisés is going to be my pick, but I will say, can't call this a confident one. This is not a fight that I would be interested in betting in. I'm not interested in dog or pass. I'm not interested in Moisés as the favorite. But in terms of making a pick, I'm going Thiago Moisés.
Yeah, you got to make a pick on this one. I'm going Thiago Moisés. On paper, he's the better fighter. He has the jiu-jitsu. Giagos could have the better wrestling. But after the first round, Giagos, I could see Moisés getting the takedowns. I just think Moisés has more heart than Giagos, and Moisés has better boxing, the better jiu-jitsu. And whenever Giagos has stepped up, he hasn't really done well whenever he stepped up the competition, right? So the last two wins he has against Soriano and who's the other guy? But his last two wins, he won 2 in a row, but it's not the best competition, right? He lost against Arman, but he beat Soriano and Carlton Maness. That was his 2-fight win streak, right? So I like Moisés. My only concern, Moisés got folded in his last fight, but Giagos has never won by knockout in the UFC. So I'm going to go with Thiago, avoiding any type of power, surviving whatever wrestling Giagos wants to bring in the early going. And then eventually I could see Moisés having a higher pace with the striking. He has really good low kicks. I think he has a better boxing, the more accurate strikes. And again, I think he's going to be shooting for takedowns later in the fight. And Giagos has been submitted multiple times, so I could see Thiago even getting a submission here. But I'm going to go Thiago, but not confident. He got folded his last fight, but Thiago's my pick.
Fourth fight of the main card, Josh Parisian versus Alain Baudot. Parisian lost to Dontel Mays. That was back in December. Parisian is introduced as a striker. He has a bit of a sneaky calf kick. He fights from the outside. Somewhat agile, at least early in the fight, despite his frame. Good long jab, like I mentioned. Long 1-2s when he decides to use it. He'll close distance. He won't be afraid to sort of engage on the feet with his opponents. And I mean, we learned in his last fight, his takedown defense, not really the best. His ground game, not really the best either. Alain Baudot lost a unanimous decision to Parker Porter in February, 0-3 in the UFC now at this point. He has a long jab as well. He has decent combinations. His striking speed is pretty good. He's pretty light on the feet. He's a pretty dynamic striker. Good movement overall, but his game also has holes in it. The chin is questionable, the heart is questionable, and we've seen him be taken down pretty easily as well. I don't think takedowns will matter too much in this fight on either side. I do think both of them should keep it on the feet. I hate when UFC puts these low-level heavyweight fights and in high slots on these main cards. But I mean, again, because it's such a low level, anything can happen. You can't feel confident on either side, and that pretty much explains why this fight is more or less a pick 'em. I do have to side with Josh Parisian, and really it's only for one reason, and that one reason is really not even that valid. Baudot has not shown me that he can win at this level. There's nothing that he does to win a round. There's nothing that he does to change his plan of attack. And where he prefers the fight, which is on the feet, we've seen him be outperformed by, fighters who aren't really the best strikers. Again, I think about that Parker Porter fight. So, just a heavy avoid on this one. Baudot has just not shown me an ability to win on this level. I'm not saying Josh Parisian really has, but technically he does have UFC win to his name. So Josh Parisian is going to be my pick almost by default at this point. But not only is this low level fight beware, not only is this heavyweight beware, this is also a fight where you just cannot be confident no matter which side you go with. But my pick is going to be for Josh Parisian.
Yeah, this is a bad fight, man. This is horrible. And on the main card, like this is I don't know. I guess UFC. I don't know why they put this here. I can't even make an excuse for them. But yeah, and Josh identifies as a striker. That's insane. Like he chooses to identify as a striker, but that's not true. I'm not sure what he's good at. He's just a big guy, right? He has a big body. If he gets in a dominant position, that weight he has, the weight, he uses it really well. Aside from that, I think he's really low level, man. I think this is Baudot's fight. I think Baudot's going to win this fight. You got to ask, why did UFC put this fight together? They got many American heavyweights or many American prospects. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but they could be throwing one of these guys a bone. I have to lean that they might be throwing Alan Baudot the bone. I'm just guessing. But I think someone's being thrown a bone here, given the main event slot. I'm just not sure who, because both these guys you can't trust. But I think that Alan's striking is going to be sizable, the advantage in the striking. And I think he's going to be able to look good in the striking exchanges if he holds up. And Josh, he doesn't really have that power, and he doesn't really throw punches like he's going to have to hold them against the cage or something, right, to win. And nowadays they're looking at damage. And I could see Alan landing the better precise shots, the power shots, the points in open range, right? So I'm going to go Alan Baudot. Am I confident? Absolutely not. But I think Josh is a really, really, I don't think he's UFC level, right? So I don't think Alan is either, but I just think Alan has a bit more skills. So I'm going to go Alan to get this one done.
Let's move on to the co-main event of the evening. We have Neil Magny taking on Shavkat Rakhmonov. Neil Magny won a split decision versus Max Griffin. That was back in March. A well-rounded fighter. We know that he can do a bit of everything. Long, rangy striker. He's going to have 3 inches in reach. Advantage for this fight, 2 inches in height as well. Long jab, light on his feet. So he uses kicks effectively to keep range as well. Decent overall ground game. We see the numbers there, over 2 takedowns a fight, over 40% accuracy. But I wouldn't say it's a dominant part of his game. He's not really dominant on the ground, but again, has that ability to land the ground game, has the ability to do some grappling, has the ability to have some control time as well. Respectable takedown defense. Percentage doesn't really back that up. It's only 55%, but for the most part, he's going to use his length to his advantage in terms of his takedown defense, staying balanced, using his longer limbs to stay on his toes, and not really allowing himself to go down. And you can't forget to mention he has great cardio, great constant activity as well. Neil Magny is one of those opponents, almost one of those gatekeeper type of opponents where they're always going to be game, and they always seem to match up against these more prospect type of figures like a Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat Rakhmonov beat Carlston Harris in February. Good welterweight prospect, undefeated, 15-0. Good on the feet, good distance control, good active head movement, good footwork overall, good in and out movement, good effective calf kicks. His stand up is pretty calculated. The stand up is pretty relaxed. A lot of fakes and feints in his game. Just really good boxing overall. He has a strong clinch. He has good takedown defense as well. But his background, just speaking about the ground game a little bit more, his background is combat sambo. So I've seen good grappling from him, unsurprisingly. I've seen strong takedown ability from him, unsurprisingly. Good top control, unsurprisingly, and he has 100% finish rate. Overall with his 15-0 record, and again with the 3 fights that he's had in the UFC, 2 submissions, 1 TKO. So again, just continuing to finish opponents. We know Magny is always game. Always a tough opponent. He's plus 310 in this fight. There's always going to be value that can be justified on the side of Neil Magny. But something tells me that he's a little bit too outmatched here. I think Rakhmonov is a lot more technical on the feet. I think he's quicker. I think he has better combinations. He's a little tighter. Again, just more technique with his striking style. I think Rakhmonov also has the better wrestling, probably the better grappling too. And he has good wins in the UFC already. But I feel like a win over Neil Magny will kind of officially put him on the map a little bit quicker. I'm Rakhmonov all day on this one. I understand minus 400. It's a bit of calling hype, so to speak, but I think it's justified. I like Shavkat Rakhmonov in this fight.
Yeah, Neil Magny, that guy's a G though, eh? That guy was willing to fight what's that guy? Chimaev. When everyone was refusing the fight, he went out there, he was ready to go, right? I think Chimaev, I think something on his side caused it for it not to happen, right? So he's game. This guy will fight anybody. And I respect that. Shavkat ranked 15th. We have Neil Magny ranked 10. So they're trying to fast track Rachmanov this year. And once he wins this fight, he should take that number 10 spot. And then he's a couple fights away, or maybe 1 or 2 fights away from a top 5 guy, right? So this guy's getting brought up really fast. They recognize that Rachmanov is the real deal. In this fight, he's going to have a wrestling advantage. Neil, if this was 5 rounds, I think that would help him out so much here. But I just think Rachmanov is going to be able to hold his own everywhere. And he's going to have the power standing. He has good strikes. And I think if any issues he has with the striking, he can lean towards that grappling. He can get, Magny can be taken down. And just like Michael Chiesa had a lot of success with the takedowns. So I can see Rachmanov, if all fails with the striking, he needs a smart fighter. He can't afford a loss. He's undefeated for a reason. I think he gets this done. I think this is a parlay piece, right? So I'm going to go with Rachmanov. I think he's someone to look out for in this 170-pound division.
Let's move on then to the main event of the evening. 2 guys to look out for in the lightweight division: Arman Tsarukyan versus Mateusz Gamrot. For Tsarukyan, he's on a 5-fight win streak. Impressive win over Joel Alvarez back in February. I think he's one of the best prospects in the UFC. We know that he lost his second professional fight, and since then, he's only lost to Islam Makhachev. 18 wins, 2 losses. Good boxing, good kickboxing. I like how he puts his punches together, good combinations. Good in and out movement, pretty quick as a counter puncher. Good power to go along with it. He has good calf kicks. He has good movement around the ring. Really good takedowns, solid top control. And again, just a very well-rounded fighter. He's a highly skilled fighter. Someone who I think will be a serious contender at some point. And I mean, I can say a lot of the same things about Mateusz Gamrot. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He beat Diego Ferreira back in December. He's a good technical striker. He does look composed on the feet. He looks comfortable on the feet. He can switch stance. He's a pretty diverse striker. He mixes it up pretty well. He does show good level changes on the feet, good in and out movement again in his own right, good takedown ability in his own right, good takedown entries, good finishing, good chain wrestling. He's a Polish and European grappling champion as well, so just solidifying his ability on the ground. And again, like I said, I can say similar things about these guys because he is a well-rounded fighter as well. I think these 2 are very well matched. Neither of them have any glaring weakness to their game. That said, I feel like Tsarukyan is, flat out just on a higher level. And that's saying a lot considering how I feel about Mateusz Gamrot in terms of the level that he's at. But for Tsarukyan, cleaner, more technical in the stand-up. I think both of them are elite on the ground. But I truly feel like I said, Tsarukyan, just one of the best in the division. Although they both can strike, although they both have a ground game, I'm going to trust Tsarukyan to just implement his game plan more. I'm going to trust Tsarukyan to just be at a higher level in this fight. And I think primarily it's going to be the striking that sets him apart because I think their ground games will kind of cancel each other out. So Arman Tsarukyan is going to be my pick. Minus 280, I think is some decent value. Again, I understand the threat that is Mateusz Gamrot. He's a very good fighter. I think very highly of Mateusz Gamrot. But sometimes you just have to go for it when you feel like the opponent is just at a higher level. And that's how I feel about Arman Tsarukyan. So he's going to be my pick. I'm more than likely looking at him as a parlay piece as well. I'm feeling good about Tsarukyan.
Yeah, this to me is a tough fight. So I like that the UFC put this fight together. Mateusz Gamrot, he's ranked 12th in the lightweight division. Armin's ranked 11th. So win or lose, they're not going to be really set back. They're going to be given a next fight and they're right back into the mix, right? So it's a tough fight because you got to look at Mateusz Gamrot. This guy, he really should be undefeated. He won that fight against what was his name, Garam. He won that fight, and it was a split decision loss. But MMA Decision agrees, right? They should have gave the Gamrot the decision there. But Gamrot's undefeated, but if you watch his fights previously, he got beat down by a guy named Norman Park, a journeyman. And I watched that fight. They had 2 fights. The first fight, that's why they had to have a rematch, because the first fight he lost that fight, and he got some of that judges help, and they gave him the win. So he really beat Guram, but he really lost against Norman Park 1, the first fight. So he's game though. He's been 5 rounds before. Arman hasn't, but I just think Arman's a bit more tough. Like, he's a bit more, he takes the punches better. I think he's going to be the one dictating the wrestling. They both have good grappling. They both have good wrestling, but I think Arman's wrestling is a bit better. And I just think as well, Arman's looking physically stronger since his Islam fight. If you just watch the fights and look at his physical appearance from the Joel Alvarez fight and then the Islam fight, just take a look at his appearance and you can see that this guy is really, he's in the gym. This guy's really working hard. So I expect him to be even stronger than Gamrot in this spot when it comes to the grappling exchanges. And let's not sleep on his striking. It's getting really good. He has legit boxing. He might have the more technical boxing than Gamrot, but Gamrot's a bit sneaky. He's a bit unorthodox. So he could throw something crazy, something wild. But I'm going to go with Arman here. I just think that he's going to be in the top 5 by the end of this year. When you really look at who's above him in the rankings, we got Rafael Fiziev, Tony Ferguson, Conor McGregor, Rafael Dos Anjos, ranked number 7, Dos Anjos. So I can easily see him beating all those guys. Easily. So I like Arman, and I think he's going to get the win here.
Okay, so let's move on then to Vegas. Let's consider some underdog action. I will read out the underdog options. We have Vanessa Demopoulos versus Jinh Frey. We have Brian Kelleher versus Bautista. We have Cody Durden, who flipped to the underdog position, versus JP Bays. We have Raulian Paiva versus Sergey Morozov. We have Shayilan Nuerdanbieke versus TJ Brown. We have Tafon Nchukwi versus Ulberg. We have Rodolfo Vieira versus Chris Curtis. Nate Maness versus Umar Nurmagomedov. We have Christos Giagos versus Thiago Moisés. We have Josh Parisian as the slight underdog, basically a pick'em. Neil Magny, Mateusz Gamrot, and where is that last fight? I don't know why it's not showing, but yeah, Mateusz Gamrot, sorry, and Neil Magny.
Okay. Cody Durden or Vieira? I'm gonna go with Cody Durden.
Cody Durden, so pretty much even money on Cody Durden. Definitely a legitimate underdog there. In terms of my underdog pick, I am looking at Tafon Nchukwi. Again, pretty much right around even money for Nchukwi as well. And in terms of favorite picks or parlay pieces, who are you considering?
Okay, so as far as parlays, I'm gonna roll with Shavkat Rakhmonov. Man, this is tough, man. Parlay wise, what are the odds on Umar?
He is I know he's a steep favorite. Yeah, he's around minus 900 to minus 1,000.
Okay, I'm gonna go with I know I said I was worried that Kelleher can come out with the IQ here. But I just think Mario Bautista looked physically stronger his last fight. He's gonna be the bigger guy here. So I'm gonna go Mario Bautista. Mario Bautista, Shavkat, and let me just throw one more in here. What are the odds on that?
For Shavkat and Bautista?
Yeah.
That would be right on even money.
Okay, one sec here. And let me throw in oh man, this is tough. Let me throw in Jinh Frey.
All right, Jinh.
No, we can't do that ever. I'm gonna do Umar Nurmagomedov and just call it that.
So that would currently pay. Let's see here. I don't know what's up with this site here. It's not even showing me a page.
You know what? Throw in Arman. Throw in Arman Tsarukyan.
On top and Umar as well.
Yeah. That's. I just want to talk because these are some low odds, man. Umar's gonna run through this guy.
Okay, 1 second. Let me try to refresh this page. Dealing with some technical difficulties. Oh, I don't know why it's not showing. Let's show what other betting site can we go on really quickly here.
FanDuel.
FanDuel I'm on currently.
Betway 365.
Let's see what
bet. 365 won't let you in without an account.
Let's take a look at Betway. Bear with me.
But I think this card has a lot of options. You know what I mean? Like you can play around with like 4 fights, like you feel really good with, and then add a couple more and really like play that long parlay for fun. But I think there's like 4 to 6, 7 fights that, and people can find, everyone's gonna have their own, right? But I think that's what you got to look at in this card. Kind of zone in on like 6 fights, find your 3 best, find your 2 best, whatever, parlay whatever you want. Try a long shot on the 6 you feel good with. I think this is the type of card that you can get away with that, right?
So let's see here. Okay. So those 4 fights, again, just running those back, we have Mario Bautista, Umar Nurmagomedov, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and Arman Tsarukyan. Those would pay a 2.97, giving some decimal odds there. $100 will return a total of $297, and for our bigger bettors, $250 would return a total of $744. My parlay actually looks very similar to this, except I sort of told myself I would not add Umar Nurmagomedov to the mix. I do feel very confidently about him as well, but still a fight, and I've been screwed over in the past for worse reasons. So I'm looking at just the 3: Mario Bautista, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Arman Tsarukyan. Those 3 would pay a 2.67, again, giving decimal odds. $100 will return a total of 267, and for our bigger bettors, $250 will return a total of 669. So let's officially sign off on that note. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here at Boxing MMA Picks. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video, and most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. How do you feel about our picks? Who is your underdog pick? What parlay pieces do you want additional advice on? We're always more than happy to have that conversation in the comments below. But officially signing off, this has been UFC Fight Night, Arman Tsarukyan versus Mateusz Gamrot, the full card prediction video by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. As usual, he goes by Zahn, I go by Harris. Let's get this money.
Let's get it.